Over the past week, we have seen the media engage in the most disgusting, despicable display of media malfeasance, proving that they will side with absolutely anybody and everybody so long as they believe they can attack President Trump and influence the outcome of the 2020 election. They'll side with terrorists, they'll side with murderous gang members, whatever it takes. But now, we see Democrats going out there and actively rewriting history in real time, which goes on to show that you can't trust everything that you see in the history books and how bad our education system is getting. Because history is written by the victors. And right now, the Democrats have a complete victory and dominance over the education system. And so when we take a look at the history books and seeing how Democrats have the ability to rewrite history on the spot, is it any wonder that there are so many people on the left that have grown up to hate America, to think that the country that has created the most just, equal, and fair society known to man in the history of the planet, and they come up and hate the country. Well, now the Democrats are going off and they're rewriting history again, and this time to create a fictional narrative that the Obama administration, instead of being a dumpster fire of disaster, was somehow a time of peace and prosperity around the globe. You don't believe me? Well, take a look at this complete rewriting of history.
Do not, because this was not just Barack Obama, but the reporting I've seen says that President George W. Bush and Vice President Dick Cheney also passed on the chance to take out Soleimani. And the reason they all passed is they did not want to escalate a war with Iran. And I believe the President Obama had a strategy of the JCPOA that would prevent Iran from becoming nuclear. And there weren't these incidents during the Obama administration. We didn't have protests against our embassies. We didn't have the killing of American contractors. So Americans were safe at that time.
What complete and total garbage that was. That the world was safer under Obama. We didn't have protests at our embassies. Our contractors weren't killed. Hello, Benghazi? We only talked about it for 2 years, 2.5, 3 years, in which our embassy was attacked by a bunch of terrorists. Obama sat on his hands, did nothing, and they got into the embassy and killed our ambassador. Obama administration was a complete dumpster fire and left the world pretty much burning, while the media was left to try and follow him around with a pooper scooper cleaning up his mess. He was a complete and total failure on the world stage and everywhere. Trump gets into office, and what happens? He starts taking a hard approach to terrorism and international policy. And what happens? We did have a long period of peace and prosperity in which our embassies and our people were not attacked because people were too afraid. Well, Iran decided to test Trump's resolve, and they paid for it. And now, as we take a look at everything, Iran came back and tried to respond. And we'll get to that here in just a moment. But as you can see, the left's ability to rewrite history to suit their needs and try to claim that before Trump, or before the current Republican president, the last time the Democrats were in charge, everything was great. And yet every place that the Democrats are in charge is a complete dumpster fire, a hellhole. People are miserable and suffering. But because they get to write all the history books with a complete dominance over our education system, they get to rewrite history, create a fictional narrative like they do in the media, and raise a generation of people to hate this country. Now, getting on to Iran's response. Well, the media has tried to play it up. Oh, Iran's responding. It's all out war. But let's go ahead and take a look at what actually happened. Iran decided to pick a bunch of low-level targets and gave everybody a warning to clear out there. And then they fired a bunch of missiles at a deserted base, in which nobody was around to get killed. Sure, they got to say, hey, we attacked back and we destroyed a couple of buildings with nobody in it, a bunch of vacant sites. Oh, we're so tough. Now the media tried to play this up and hype it as if it was something more than what it was. But let's face it, Iran, they weren't going to risk anything that would invoke further retaliation. Now, when we take a look at Iran's attack, there there is a little thing that is missing. They didn't actually hit U.S. targets, or they didn't actually hit U.S. bases. They hit coalition bases. And this was a mistake by Iran. While they gave everybody a warning in order to clear out, the bases that they hit weren't just stationed, with Americans. They were stationed with international coalition forces, including Iraqi forces. They hit Iraqi bases. Now, since they gave everybody a warning and everybody cleared out and there was no loss of life, this is designed to say that there's no reason for any further escalations. There's no reason to respond to Iran. But not only did they make a mistake in hitting an international base of coalition force base, an Iraqi base, but they went off to show the world's community that they haven't really been abiding by much of anything as far as treaty and deal wise, that other than the nuclear weapons issue, which this person had falsely claimed, that the JCPOA, Obama's Iran deal, was a safeguard and would prevent Iran from getting nuclear weapons, which couldn't be further from the truth. All it was designed to do was delay it until he was out of office so that he wouldn't himself, Obama, be blamed for such a failure in Iran. But, that's how politics is played. Obama, he got taken for a fool. He just wanted to be able to claim he did something when he did absolutely nothing except send them a bunch of money, hundreds of billions of dollars, in which they could build rockets and missiles, such as the ones that they used to attack the coalition bases. But as we go through and we take a look at the entirety of the situation, now that everyone is going off and saying, well, that was the response, and now everyone's trying to say there's no need for further response, and now we can get back to de-escalating the situation. They got to show that they were tough, responding back to the U.S. The U.S. took out a high priority target and, didn't really suffer anything in return. But there is another take on this, one that I found interesting when I heard it, and it comes from Dan Bongino. And what he says could be a little scary. And, there is some truth to this possibility. Now, whether or not, this is just a conspiracy theory, whether or not Trump administration, is preparing for such an event and staying on high alert, it remains to be seen. But if Iran chooses to escalate, they may do so. And, well, let's go ahead and take a look at Dan Bongino's theory first.
Now, some of the commentary I heard last night was, well, this was a face-saving measure. Basically, the gist of it, Joe, being that the Iranian hardliners, the mullahs, that they had to do something to save face with the radical, basically terrorists in Iran that are pushing the mullahs to do something. So they did this, well. And by face-saving, they mean this may have been an intentional miss. In other words, the ballistic missiles may have targeted specific areas where they didn't think they would rack up any U.S. casualties, knowing, Joe, if they happened to kill any U.S. servicemen, that President Trump was not going to take that lying down, and the response would be immediate and likely pretty deadly for the mullahs. Everybody tracking? So face-saving measure in that they had to do something. And what they did, they intentionally targeted areas where they didn't think they would kill any U.S. soldiers because they knew if they did, it would result in probably devastation for them in their oil facilities and elsewhere. I want to challenge that for a moment. Folks, I don't think this was a face-saving maneuver. And I'm listen when I tell you this, please. I am hoping and praying I'm wrong on this. But I don't believe it was face-saving, Joe. I believe this was a head fake.
All right.
Now, as the audience ombudsman, always, Joe, follow me. And if it doesn't make sense, please let me know. But here's what I mean by that.
You got it.
Maybe it's meant to look like a face-saving maneuver, right? Like, look, here's what we did. We launched some missiles. We didn't kill any of your people. It's all good now. You got our guy. We responded back. We satisfied our radicals over here, these extremists that wanted the death to America crowd. It's all over, guys. Wink and a nod. But what if it's not?
Now, as you can see, the whole gist of that is, what if this is just a head fake? That Iran, is just faking us out, saying, okay, this was our response, everything's all good now, and they're waiting until a later point in time in order to strike and cause the most devastating damage. Because Iran has been attacking U.S. interests and killing U.S. soldiers and U.S. personnel for over 40 years now. Right now, they've tried to hide it. They tried to deny it. They tried to go through proxies. I mean, this is what they've been doing. And then all prior administrations, played dumb and go, well, we don't know that it was Iran. It was this other group. We don't know who was really backing them, yada, yada, yada. And this has been how Iran has operated, using proxies to carry out their terrorist attacks. Now, this could be a situation where the real response that they are looking for, could be later on down the road. Now, what do I mean by that? At a time when they think it would be most advantageous to them. So, for instance, if they're paying attention to the U.S. election and they're going, oh man, Trump, we can't deal with Trump. If Trump, remains in office, we're through. We're done. All the things that we were able to do and progress under the Obama administration, who let us do whatever we wanted, attack whoever we wanted, played ignorant and claimed to the world community that we were moderating. Those days are over. We got someone who actually means what they say and who's actually going to back up their statements with action. And so they may be taking a look at it going, okay, now there's an election around the corner. Within the U.S. What will they do? They'll probably wait until a strategic point in time in the election to have their real response, right? To be able to go through and, let's say October surprise, if they were politically savvy and probably being coached by John Kerry, where they would go off and decide that, hey, October surprise, we're going to hit our real response. We're going to hit a big target. We're going to hit it hard. Kill lots of U.S. people, blame Donald Trump, and this will negatively affect him in the election. Usually during wartime, the United States tends to keep with the president. But if Iran were to do that, the Democrats would run with that, saying, oh, wow, Trump has made us more dangerous. Trump has, made American citizens' lives in jeopardy and all of that stuff. They would go out there and try to hit it hard. Right? They were trying to hit it hard. Nothing's really changed in Iran whatsoever. The only thing that's changed about Iran is the fact that they now have a complacent and compliant media helping to cover up their crimes and terrorist activities, and they are learning and figuring out how to use media in order to deliver a message, in order to create a narrative that, of course, the left is sympathetic towards, because the left hates the United States. And that's the way things are going to go, where Iran is going to wait, likely for the most advantageous time for their real response, waiting for us to be lulled into a sense of security that everything is over. And Iran will probably go back to using proxies to attack our embassies, attack our allies, and kill our soldiers and U.S. personnel. Hopefully, we can solve the Iran problem before another Democrat gets into the White House, caves in to terrorists, funds terrorists, and turns the world back into the dumpster fire that it was when Obama left office. Hey YouTube viewers, thank you so much for your time and attention in watching this video. If you want to get more, click on the video playing off to the side here. Also, don't forget to hit subscribe and the notification bell so that you'll be notified when new videos and content drops. Thank you, and I appreciate it.